Hi, so for this week's discussion, some of the questions that we had to answer were what do you see as the biggest challenge facing a modern um, workforce and how can IO Psych help? So I think right now one of the biggest problems will be creating a work community and communication. I've worked in a lot of places where people don't know how to communicate with one another, and that just creates so much difficulty, so much stress, like, because you don't want to be in that place with people that you can't talk to. And in the company that I work now, it's much better. Like, we all interact with one another and talk and actually have a dialogue in a community where we can express if we feel some kind of way about the job we're doing, if we feel some kind of way about the project that we're in at the moment. We can actually discuss and talk about what can be done to make it better. I feel like when you have a community inside your job, you're more willing to want to talk, more willing to want to do the work and be passionate about that. So I think IO Psych can help by, I don't know, like engaging your manager and have like meetings weekly to like open dialogue about what's going on, what bothers you, what is helping, as well as work more in groups. We'll do projects more in groups. I know in my company I do a lot of work um, in teams, and it's always a team effort. So for the most part, we can communicate and say what's going on. We also try to like have meetings without our manager around. So if there's something that we need to talk about, we can talk about it freely without having the manager around. And we have like mini breaks in between with each other to talk about personal stuff or work stuff, maybe stuff that's like bothering us, as well as like we'll like have outings like happy hour, or we'll take our lunches together. I just feel like if you are like happy at your job, it has to do a lot about who you're around and if you can talk about stuff. Because if you're just bottling all that stuff up, it just makes it worse, and like you just feel like this weight on you, and like you can never like actually be happy or be passionate about what you're doing. So that's one question. And then another question was, who do you feel made the biggest contribution to early history of IO psychology? So I believe that Walter Dill Scott made the biggest contribution to IO psych because he was the one that actually used psychology characteristics and theories and stuff like that, and brought it to the business world. He used applied psychology to view the business. Like, he analyzed and explored like psychology and organization, as well as like the culture of a company and the attitudes of workers, and that I feel was the foundation to start IO Psych and bridge that like gap of like business is business and psychology and psychology really isn't a science. I know that was, to me, I felt like that was something that everyone thinks, like psych isn't really a science, when it actually is and has to do a lot with everyday life. People just don't know how to explain it properly. I feel like he was the one that started and became a role model for uh, IO Psych. He was the one that built that gap between business and psych. Because obviously, like, the way you act has a lot to do with psych, but how you act in a business place is psychology too. So it's just building that gap between them, if that makes sense. I hope I am. And I thought he was also very important because he was the one that started the movement to test military men that probably never ever got like tested for anything. They're probably at that time of World War II, if they came back from war, it was just like the impact, and they thought they went crazy of everything that was going on, which you could say they could, because they went through a lot of trauma, but they weren't exploring that. They weren't exploring it like through tests and assessments and performance. And he was one of the people that decided to assist in like the U.S. Army giving techniques for selection, for training, for performance, which really does help because people that didn't go don't understand the impact that just makes on you, of like being around guns and being around people dying every single day. Like that's a lot to take in, and unless you were there, like you would never know that. But because of Scott, like he was able to like see all that and be able to help people in that way that probably never ever would have gone to a psychologist, which is good. And then the last question that we had for this discussion was, have you ever experienced a problem at work that interfered with your safety, productivity, or job satisfaction? And how is it relevant to IO Psych? So I used to work in a nursing home as an activities assistant for a nursing home with people that were mostly all there, had their five senses intact. And I think there was one experience where it literally like used all three, like the safety, productivity, and job satisfaction. Was we take trips weekly. We would take weekly trips, whether it was to a museum, like the store, or a baseball game. And one time we went to a baseball game and it was my turn. And usually the residents will sign up beforehand and they already know that we're going there. But for some reason on my day, like it was so unorganized, like no one signed up. So I had to go through every resident and ask for them to come because there was like a member limit on the bus. So I had to do that and I was able to do it. But I got people that were high risk of falling, high risk of like wandering and all that kind of stuff, which wasn't fair to me. And not only was that, it just wasn't productive because it's supposed to be, I got there, let's get on the bus, let's have a good time. But it wasn't a good time at all. So that day I had one resident that was very, very high risk that would get up from their chair and be moving around, and he was a fall risk. He already had multiple like injuries, but he came on the bus and I was instructed to bring him already. I don't feel like that's right or productive or safe, and that's not how I want to spend my job. And I don't, not that I don't want to spend, that's not a way how I want to like have to spend my time at my job. Is like babysitting, because that's not the point. It's to help the resident like have something to do, be there with them. So that day we went to the baseball game and he just kept getting out of his chair and moving. Mind you, I had other residents to look over and like just make sure that they were safe. And that day was just like all in three. Like it wasn't productive at all to be checking on all the residents and be with him. It wasn't safe at all, because what if some other resident needed me and I wasn't there, but I was paying attention to one resident the whole time, scared that they were gonna fall. And it just made me hate my job for the day. Like it just wasn't fun for me to like sit there and like just watch and be frightful that this person on my watch was going to fall and go to the hospital. And like it would have been nice if administration like that's why I say IO Psych could be into this, because it would have helped if there was more communication or more regulation, or administration was there to help me out. I was the only person that day watching over everybody, like, and like it would have been much more like, I feel like it just would have been a better environment to do stuff if like management was involved and was talking and was there with an actual plan. There was no plan in place for this activity to happen at all. And like if people were communicating, had an actual plan, like there would be no risk of me getting hurt, risk of the resident getting hurt. It would have been a productive and positive day, and I would have actually liked my job. So yeah, I got a little heated as I said that. But I hope that you guys like this video or like this discussion, and until next time.